This isn't a DD. This isn't a cruiser. This isn't a battleship. This is a torpedo boat. And this is a pile of Hey everyone, Sly47 here. Today we're talking about the designations in World of Warships Blitz, and particularly the wrong ones. We're aiming, they made 4 of them. It makes sense. Simplify it, pretty easy, right? But there's a lot of ships that don't really fit in those categories. So let's talk about those today. Give some people some potential warnings or also some potential tips on how to play these ships. And outside of that, let me know in the comments down below. Did I miss any? Would you replace any of them? Would you say that I was wrong on any of these wrong designations? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's get into it. First up, DDs that, realistically they need to be CLs. We've got the Elbing, the Kleber, the Holland, definitely, Haragumo, Regalo, and the Khabarovsk. That's going to be switched out soon. We'll see exactly how that goes. But let's just go off of the Elbing. I think the Elbing and I think Kleber really kind of hit this category pretty well. But this is a light cruiser with very good penetration on the guns. Pretty fast firing, actually, for how much damage they can put out. Long-range torpedoes are incredibly slow. But hey, you still might hit a few, you might as well send them out at that point. But the Elbing, realistically, you're playing this thing at max range. You are not getting into up-close knife fighting like a Daring or many other ships, a Gearing on top of it, or heck, even a Grozvoy can kind of pull it off. I wouldn't suggest it, but either way. Elbing, though, you're staying at long range, you're bullying those caps, you're bullying those cruisers that have decided to pop up, and you're just getting Citadel crises off them all the time. Battleships, once again, you're using that insane AP penetration to do pretty much the exact same thing. But DDs, on the other hand, can really cripple this thing, and things like the CC or other cruisers that are specifically designed to take down light cruisers and or DDs, this thing can be shredded quite hard at times because it doesn't really have great ways to spot particularly smoke cruisers at longer ranges. But overall, the Elbing, a lot of people are starting to find they're really liking it when they play it the exact way. Whereas the Kleber right here, long range HE spammer, you're going to use that AP a little bit here and there. It's more of a burst down version of the Elbing. You just don't have that massive penetration from those 150 guns. Over here on the Holland, you're just playing at max range. Once again, these are all ships you're not really getting in knife fights. You're using what range you realistically have, and the torpedoes at all of these to just send them out. And particularly the Holland, it's more about just getting that flood. Kleber, it's more about, hey, if you hit them, you hit them. And then Elbing is, hey, you might forget you even sent them out and lit something. So, but the Holland, you're definitely staying out there getting those fires. Kleber, kind of a mixture of the two, but more of a speed demon. And realistically, just using that just insane firepower that this does bring at times with that rapid reload. Once we go over here, Khabarovsk, this is getting switched out for the Delny. Right now, it's just a long-range HE spammer, which of course we can basically get a dime a dozen at tier 10 and during the entire line. But this thing, it's just so massive, it becomes a light cruiser. And then right here, the Regalo, the Italian DD line after tier 8 are light cruisers. They are no longer DDs. So just kind of understand you are changing up your playstyle. You're not going to be knife fighting as much, even though they have a lack of range. Luckily, they start getting a immense firepower at tier 9 and tier 10 to make up for that lack of range and that lack of concealability overall, really. But yeah, these are definitely light cruisers. Haragumo, this is pretty much you're just going to sit and smoke and fire at long range and spam HE. That's basically what you're going to do. It's a death by 1,000 cuts machine versus smacking them with AP. So these ships right here, just be ready to not have the traditional DD role put on you in battle. And particularly, you're going to be going after larger ships, but not with your torpedoes most of the time. Next up, we have cruisers that definitely are DDs because they play completely different. When we're talking about the Elbings of the world, or the Klebers, or the Hollands, they're just basically sitting at max range and firing these ships. They want to get up close and personal and choose when they want to engage their targets. We got the Minotaur and the Colbert. Minotaur, really, it's the king of high risk, high reward, especially once you put on the propulsion, a concealment build, the camo, and a good commander, especially Beatty. You are talking about a ship with 7.12 kilometer surface detection range, torpedoes that fire out to 8.74 kilometers, and guns that shoot out to 12. You've got a turn time of 6.74 seconds, which is insanely nimble for a cruiser. And then, of course, a pretty decent, going up to full speed on this. So overall, the Minotaur is just this incredibly tight knife fighting cruiser package that some days you're going to be a torpedo boat, some days you're going to be a gunboat, and of course you're going to have the in-between days, or in-between games, I should say. Realistically, this ship does absolutely everything phenomenal with the 8 torpedoes on each side, 10 guns, decent AA, really, and just it's entire package. If you are a DD player and want to get into cruisers, this will be it. After about tier 8, they tend to go more towards that DD route, because of course they finally have a lot more of the torpedoes to actually be able to perform that route and perform it well in the game. But from I'd say 5 to 8, they are kind of more that traditional cruiser with just AP. Once you get up to 9 and 10, you're starting to have some serious firepower on each side just from the torpedoes, and then the guns added on top of it. You can play them however you want, and they're just absolutely fantastic. Over to the Colbert, this ship is absolutely painstakingly hard to play. Because everyone goes, it's a cruiser, right? No, it is not. This is a gunboat DD. You're going to play this almost akin to a Haragumo without smoke. This is a death by 1,000 cuts. You need to choose when you're going to open fire with all of these guns. I think you can get six or 7, I think, on a broadside on this. But you're going to want to get yourself into position so that basically when you start firing, the enemy maybe isn't focusing you. Or, of course, you can use the trick with the engine accelerator that you can literally just sit there, stop, and start firing at people. And let's say a Vermont shooting at max range, you just press go and press the engine accelerator. They'll miss because of how fast this ship has a get up and go. It has 7.56 surface detection, but its main thing right here is its time to full speed is 7.6 seconds. With the engine accelerator, it drops down to like 5 seconds. It's ridiculous. A turn time of 5.48 because, of course, this thing has a broadside of a barn. It is incredibly easy to hit at times, so you got to make sure you're moving. But this thing is a death by 1,000 cuts machine. But that AP on this is very similar to Smolensk, actually. That when you get close to it in a DD, this thing will shred you. So when you play this more like a DD hunter that happens just to be a massive DD, you're going to have yourself a lot more fun than a lot of other things. But make sure to cloak up in the Colbert, because if you just keep yourself firing at times, you're going to wear your welcome out and unfortunately run out of luck too. So I was prepping for the next section and I completely forgot about this beauty right here. Oh yeah, the Dalian. You totally forgot about this one, right? Yeah, we all wanted to forget about this one, didn't we? Yeah, but yeah, you guys get to look at this one more time, just like I have to often. But yeah, the Dalian, use the torp first. Send out a bunch of torpedoes, and then use your guns with smoke in order to burn some people down and stuff like that. But yeah, Dalian is definitely a DD that's just disguised as a cruiser. And before anyone says that I missed the Smolensk in this section, no, I didn't. It's here. It's not a DD and it's not a cruiser. It's just hell incarnate. Okay, let's just get the facts straight right there. Okay, next section. So let's talk battle cruisers. So there's technically 2 types of battle cruisers in World of Warships Blitz. Ones that are labeled cruisers and ones that are labeled battleships, because of course it's kind of a mixed bag in here. Unfortunately, there's a lot of battle cruisers that are labeled cruisers that are arguably not really great and such. We could look at the Henri, the Goliath. They can be usable, they can work, but they're nothing in the line of the battle cruisers that are labeled as battleships, in my opinion. I grabbed a few of them to kind of just go over the general gist of battle cruisers in this game from the cruiser perspective. You got the Kronstadt and Stalingrad. These are ships that are not particularly good at taking down DDs, and that's really what cruisers are meant to do. They're meant to hunt, just straight up hunt the DDs. These are more for hunting bigger targets, including light cruisers and, of course, battleships themselves. So these guns, laser accurate, you're pretty much going to be sitting back with all of your battleships, just kind of moving back and forth, really doing what you can on stripping their turrets, because that's how accurate these are. Moskva adds a little bit of support to that, so if you're wanting something that can take on DDs a little better, or take on light cruisers because of that support of a radar, Moskva's right there, but it's still going to be sitting back in the back line just like a battleship would for most of the game. You're not really pushing up in any of these. Puerto Rico kind of can get up a little bit closer, but I'd still sitting back. This is more volume of fire, and also low-key turn off auto aim. This thing becomes a monster. So if you haven't seen that video, go back a few weeks, you'll see it on my channel. Yoshino, this is a battle cruiser, technically. So it's technically because of the guns and its size. But in reality, it's a torpedo boat that happens to have big guns with no armor. So with this, you gotta be an ambusher, you gotta be stealthy to get those torpedoes tubes off. But you also have those guns that you can kind of be almost like a flotilla leader with other DDs. It's a weird one, but let's go on to a better category of battlecruisers. So I have a theory as to why I feel this way. And what it comes down to is armor. So when you have a cruiser that acts more like a battleship, the cruiser tends to have that just enough armor that it doesn't bounce anything, but it just allows everything to full pen it. Whereas when you have a battleship that plays more like a cruiser or a battlecruiser, you really come down to the point where at least it has enough armor to bounce a few rounds. That's at least my general thought. I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comments. But for me, these are definitely some great examples of ships that definitely you do not want to play these like battleships. You will get absolutely murdered in them. The Champagne, just super accurate guns at long range, very much like a Stalingrad, but you have that armor to somewhat back yourself up, so you're actually able to hold out long enough to just use these fast-firing guns, just enough to citadel the crap out of people. Schlieffen, you're using this as a concealment battleship. You're getting in close, you're making sure you can use that secondary of this. The main guns aren't really the main purpose here, but I just wanted to shout out to the Schlieffen because it is really a battle cruiser / cruiser playstyle. You're wanting to brawl, and you have just enough armor to kind of hold off some shells, but not enough health pool to hold up. Gniazin now is the same way. Is you are a cruiser, you're about getting in there fast, get behind the enemy lines. You are not sniping with this. I've seen too many of you sniping with the Gniazin now. Stop it. Don't do that. Not good. Incomparable. You can kind of treat it more like that battle cruiser, but the armor just doesn't hold up. But the guns do hit hard, so you got that going for you. You got the battleship guns on a very light platform. Vanguard, I think, is the perfect example of this. It's an incredibly nimble ship, faster firing guns than your typical battleship. You mostly use AP on this, but you can use that wonderful HMS HE. But right here, you're just using this. You're not actually going to be using the armor to survive. You're going to be using the nimbleness of this thing to survive, because you do have insane turn time of 8.35 seconds. That is getting fairly close to some, actually most cruisers, I should say. So you just keep this thing moving back and forth and people will miss a lot. Hood and the Repulse, kind of a similar aspect to the Vanguard, but just not as good in my opinion on that. Constellation, this ship just turns like it shouldn't. This thing, it's very easy to pen. It's a very light armor battleship, but this battleship, play it more like a cruiser. You've got all the skills to back up in a cruiser situation, but you actually have some fairly decent punchy guns and long-range guns on top of it, so you can fulfill a lot of things. You treat this like a regular battleship, you're going to get decimated, though, so do not play it like that. And also, don't snipe. Once again, don't snipe with the Gniazin now, okay? Don't. Okay? Play this like a cruiser, get in mid-range fighting, have a little bit of fun. Vanguard, be nimble, but yeah, no, battle cruisers or cruisers that are labeled as battleships, I just enjoy them more. They have a little bit more fun because they've got the punchier guns, lesser armor, but they typically have the tricks to stay alive just a little bit longer than in comparison to a lot of the cruisers that have bigger guns and act more like battleships. So, and I'd love to know your thoughts on down below on this entire topic. And finally, for one last fun section, we have cruisers here that happen to have flight decks. But yeah, no, these are pretty much just, you just go in with your guns ablazing, have fun, shoot your guns, send some planes. Pretty much you can do a crap ton of damage. They're fun. Yeah, so just a little shout out to the regulars who play on stream that have told me this dozens of times, that these are cruisers that happen to have flight decks. So now you know. And that's it from me. Let me know in the comments down below what other ships you'd want to add to this list, and also a little bit of a more meta question for those who actually are staying a little bit more into this video. Would you want to add those designations? I feel like it would be really good for a lot of players who go up a ship line, they go, oh, it's a DD, and then at the end it goes more into that light cruiser area, or even certain premiums that are definitely like battleships that end up being more battle cruisers. A lot of people say, oh, this thing's bad because it just can't tank it all, but in reality its guns are fantastic. So you just have to play it more like a cruiser that has good guns. it's just, I feel like those designations would help a lot, because I've seen people use ships wrong. They're not what they say they are. So let me know in the comments down below, would you like that distinction, or do you think that would just be maybe needless extra information that maybe would confuse players? Just love to know down there. But hopefully y'all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button, it really helps support the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, hit the notification bell if you want to see whenever a new video goes live or stream goes up, so you can join up on the fun there. Discord link, of course, is in the link tree down below, which has a links to the entire part of my community within the larger Blitz community. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters and super chatters for helping make all this possible. Have a good one, everyone. Peace.